say our blessing together and then jump into our topic for the evening. So please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat Omer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies us with commandments and commands us to count the Omer. And we announce the day of the Omer first in Hebrew. Hayom Arba'im Yom Shehem Chamisha Shavuot V'Chamisha Yamim LaOmer, which means that today is 40 days, which corresponds to 5 weeks and 5 days of the Omer. Okay, so we are still in the theme of Sa'ar Ba'alei Chaim, of showing kindness to animals or avoiding suffering of animals. And I mentioned a few days ago that the value is based in some Torah text, but that phrase Sa'ar Ba'alei Chaim doesn't actually come from the Torah. So I want to share at least one of the texts that that this value is based off of. And there are lots of examples in the Torah that sort of lend themselves to this value of caring for animals and seeing animals as more than just inanimate objects. And so, for example, when we learn about the laws around Shabbat, we're told that also our animals are supposed to have a Shabbat from work. So this idea that it's not just humans that need time to rest and rejuvenate and reflect, but that's also something that is an inherent right of animals, seen as an inherent right of animals as well. That's pretty amazing. And there's well, this isn't Torah, this is Talmud, but in the Talmud they talk about how you should feed your animals, make sure your animals have been fed before you yourself sit down to eat. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. But I think the sort of core text that Sa'ar Ba'alei Chaim comes from is from Exodus chapter 23, verse 5. And this verse says, when you see the donkey of your enemy lying under its burden, and you might refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless raise it with him. So basically, if you see your enemy's donkey is lying under its burden, so it's it is carrying too much weight, it can't stand up, even though it's your enemy's donkey, you regardless, you have to help your enemy raise that donkey up. And there are a few things. I mean, I think a lot could be taken out of this one verse. So this verse is part of Parshat Mishpatim. We've just received the 10 Commandments, and this is a section of a section of laws that Rabbi Sue Levy Ellel calls unconditional imperatives. That there's a few chapters in Exodus that come after we receive the 10 Commandments that are she categorizes them as unconditional imperatives. So meaning that if I guess in the realm of ethics, that it like you have an obligation to help animals, and it doesn't matter if it's your friend's animal or your enemy's animal. It's not about anything meeting certain conditions in order for you to say, and now I will help the animal. It's an unconditional imperative that if there's an animal suffering, that you are supposed to help that animal. But there's there's a midrash that I really like that's also connected to this text. And it's an example of the rabbis trying to understand this text. And I think it brings another lens to this commandment. And so here's the midrash. The midrash is that there are two mule drivers who are going down the road at the same time, and they share one thing in common. They can't stand each other. And the mule of one of them collapses under the load. And the other one, who dislikes the first one intensely, continues on, keeps going. And then as he's going along, thinks to himself, ah, shoot, well, it's written in the Torah that if you see the donkey or a mule of someone that you hate that becomes that's lying under its burden, then you have to stop and refrain. You can't refrain from raising it, but you have to stop and raise it with your enemy. And so he's thinking about this verse from Exodus. So he turns around and he goes back and he helps his enemy to carry the load of the fallen mule. And then in the midrash, the other driver thinks to himself, wow, I thought this guy was a bad guy, but he must actually be a really good guy, because maybe I just never knew it. And then in the midrash, they proceed to an inn, and they have a drink and they toast and they become friends for life. So I think that this sort of falls under the category of like all of the different, we can name different Jewish values, and it's all in the name of sort of this like bigger picture value of pursuing justice and doing tikkun olam, trying to repair the wrongs in the world, the broken pieces of our world. And so I like, this is I love the idea that this is like the potential of, you're doing this one mitzvah because you're obligated to help animals, and it doesn't matter if it's your enemy's animal. But the unintended consequence is that actually this this relationship where two people hated each other, they come to be best friends for life because of this one simple act. And that in itself, that in itself is a tikkun, is a repair that could have repercussions in all sorts of different ways. And so the the idea that we're supposed to help animals, we are supposed to help animals. There's value in that, in showing kindness to animals. And there's also ripple effects of, when we help animals, it helps their potentials to help our planet and to help other people. So that is our text for the evening. I would be surprised if anyone here finds themselves walking down a road with your donkey next to your enemy and their donkey, but I'm sure you can think of some modern analogies of how this might play out in your life. So I hope you enjoy that. And